Hi, everyone. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live on returning responsibility. It's one of my favorite new phrases that I learned recently from Amelia. So I'm super excited to be here with her to talk more about what that means and how it can help you in work and at home. I will give you a little bio of Amelia in case you haven't met her before. She is an executive coach and founder of the Executive Mom Membership Program, empowering women to elevate their leadership abilities at work and at home. Her individualized coaching, team support, and leadership community provides mothers in senior positions with tailored solutions to reclaim their time and energy, which we all need, enhance team performance, and deepen family connections. In the last 15 years, Amelia has coached senior leaders in Fortune 500 companies, founders, entrepreneurs, medical professionals, lawyers, and creatives, and has resulted in significant financial gains for their organizations. She began her career as an art administrator at Christie's, which I'm really curious about, before moving to HBO. And in 2009, she's been doing this for a long time, she launched her coaching practice and joined Bravanti's executive coach cadre in 2014. She also holds a master's in organizational change and lives in San Diego, where I recently got to meet her in person with her husband and her two children. Thanks so much for being here, Amelia.
Thank you, Ashley. It was my pleasure to speak with you both live and in person. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know I just gave a little bit of an intro for you, but I would love to hear a little bit of your story and how you got here today.
Yes. So I learned about coaching when I was kind of new into my corporate career, but in that phase of like, I'm trying to find what I ultimately want to do. And I was working at HBO in the human resources field of business continuity management. And these coaches came into HBO and presented this amazing workshop. And I said, that's it. That is what I want to do. And I went to coaching school at night. I remember putting all of the coaching certification on my credit card and rationing my money so I could pay for it. And I started my coaching business almost immediately while I was still working full time and getting my master's. So then fast forward to 2009 when I met my husband, launched my business, and moved from New York City to Chicago at the same time. It was such a huge life transition, but that was really the beginning because I realized at the time that people needed coaching, but people needed, more importantly, they needed ways to talk to people who were in senior positions. I had been working with executives and coaching them without realizing that I was coaching. So once I was trained, once I found out who were my people, which at the time were millennial leaders, and that was like a very big deal, like, ooh, millennial leaders. And now millennials are the bosses in a lot of cases. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
I love it. And I know that we made you abbreviate the name on here because it was too long for our header. But can you tell us what Empower stands for?
Yes, Empower stands for the Executive Mom Membership Program, which I created in 2022 when I saw that there was a gap. And the gap was that more and more women were advancing in the workplace, and more of those women were having children. The issue was that there were leadership programs, and then there was like parenting advice, and none of it addressed the woman as a whole person. So being a mother and a leader require really specific skill sets, both emotionally, tactically, but there was nothing that was bringing it together. So I created that for the women in senior leadership who want to be the best of themselves at home and with their teams, and giving them the tools and skills, and most importantly, community of other women who get it, because so many women in this position of leadership were isolated from other mothers. They were getting advice from people who were stay-at-home moms, or they were getting kind of like brotastic leadership uh, strategies from people who didn't have children, and that was also not helpful. So we wanted to solve isolation, and that's why I created Empower.
I love it. And I think It sounds like just a magical community from everything that I've heard. And I also think it's super interesting on the organizational side. It sounds like you saw something similar to what I've seen, where a lot of our leaders a lot of people are having kids later in their life in general. So they're having kids in like their late 20s or mid 30s. And maybe 30 years ago or 40 years ago, people would have kids much earlier in life. And so they weren't necessarily in these leadership positions in organizations. But now a lot of people are getting to those leadership positions before having kids. And so they're kind of balancing these really intense roles at work with also like the most intense time of parenting when they have like a toddler running around and stuff like that. So I'm sure that what you are offering there is just so unique and valuable.
Yes. Well, it really was for me trying to navigate my own career as a mom. You know, as I said, I joined an executive coaches cadre when I was young. I was in my mid 30s and I had a 2-year-old, and I was working so hard at trying to be in both places at once. I would race to downtown Chicago to meet with an executive and then come back in time for pickup at the playground, and changing from heels to sneakers and all that kind of stuff that moms just magically do. They just do it. They don't think about it. But we look at our roles as subtractive often, like I'm taking away one from the other. That's how it feels. And so the Empower experience is designed to amplify both. That you being an amazing mother, an amazing leader is the same thing. And that's a lot of like mindset shift. And that's a lot of this concept of returning responsibility kind of gave birth through that personal experience of trying to figure out how in the world do we do this.
Yeah. And I think you might have just mentioned it, but how do you think about what success looks like for your clients?
Success for my clients is getting tactical time back, but it's also emotionally unloading this weight that often women who are in senior leadership and our mothers carry. We carry the responsibility for everyone's success and happiness. And so when I can return that, not only tactically, but emotionally, that's a huge success, because what happens in that case, when I actually give the responsibility back to those who own it, like my children, like certain members of my team, then they can thrive. And so the ripple effect of success is not just me. We don't exist in a vacuum. Those people around me actually start to step in to more contribution to their capacity development, to things that they can do.
I love it. I love this phrase, returning responsibility. What does it actually mean? What's the kind of the act of returning responsibility look like?
Yeah. And that's a really important question. So a lot of times women in senior leadership, moms are as well, are say, well, you just have to kind of like, you have to productivity hack this. You need to get better systems. You need better time management. It's all this like fixing. And in fact, what a lot of these women have done is that they have taken on more than their share of what belongs to them. There's so many statistics about women who are working full time, doing more than 50% of the household management. They're doing incredible amounts of emotional lifting with their children. And also in the workplace, we find women doing what is sometimes termed as non-value added work. Unfortunately, I don't like that term, because a lot of that falls into the culture building, like
Yeah.
actually what it feels like to be in a space with a team. So we need to value the load that we're carrying first and foremost. We need to understand what that is. And then we have to look at it objectively and say, how much of this do I really own? Have I taken on more than what is mine to own? And
Mm-hmm.
then the mindset of how we actually give the responsibility back to those that we have perhaps taken it from, or we've absorbed it from, or just in living in the atmosphere of the environment that we're in. It's obviously, we don't live in an equitable world for women. We don't. But we need to understand that effect on us and our mentality, and stop putting all the pressure on us to like somehow make it all magically work.
Yeah. I see that from so many of the families we work with where they come to us in a really overwhelmed state and they're kind of like, I need help. I have to do all of these things. And um, we love to help them do the things that are important to them. But also, I think there's a really important mindset shift of just realizing what brings value to you or brings value to your family that you need to do versus what maybe someone else can do or someone else can have responsibility for.
Yes. And the wonderful part about working with Sundays with an executive assistant or anyone you've contracted in the world to give you help is that now you actually have to delineate what are the things you need help with and
Yeah.
what do you expect from those things. And that goes, those basic skills, these are like basic management 101 skills. It's very interesting how when it comes to a home context, women who are incredibly senior in their leadership act as if they doesn't exist when it comes to their home context. Like, well, my kids won't do it, or my husband won't, blah. And I think, well, I empathize completely and have been, all right, I'll just do it because it has to happen. It has to occur. These things need to be done. There is a cost. And I would imagine when people come to you, they are coming to you realizing the cost is too great for me
Yeah.
to hold on to all of these things.
Yeah. It's very true. How do you think about the similarities between leading a team and running a family, and maybe how people think about their responsibility in both of those situations?
So I've found there are a lot of overlaps between motherhood and leadership, and we can say parenthood too. Include all different kinds of parents who have children. I see, first and foremost, there's a high level of emotional intelligence required, being in tune with the wants and needs of other people, because when you are, you can actually inspire and motivate them to a desired outcome. And as a leader, there is a goal and we need to get there. And you can be the kind of leader who really controls everything and browbeats everybody down to the finish line. And you can be that kind of parent at home too. And I've been both. I've been all of those things. And a lot of the women that I work with, being very high achieving, very successful, like, well, that's just what it takes. That's what it takes. But actually, what they see around them is that the people around them are not doing well in that system. They are not actually thriving. They're not getting fully their needs met, and they're not taking on what they could. Because I think, especially at home, when we do things that other people can do for themselves, we create a disempowering system. We create a dependency. And that is not good for the leader or the person who is being the recipient of the help. That dynamic happens quite often at work as well, where a direct report will overly rely on the leader to provide direction, feedback, guidance, like, help me think through this, like, just so many touch points that in fact it's like the responsibility for all of it still then lies mentally on that leader. So when we return the responsibility appropriately, whether it's like your 2-year-old putting its shoes back, his or her shoes back in the box, or it's one of your direct reports who continually comes to you to outsource parts of their jobs back to you, those are wonderful areas where if you can identify and say, that part doesn't belong to me. How can I empower that person? How can I work with them? And then be really, really clear on, this is it. Like, this doesn't belong to me. You're going to do this. And I think that's like where we all get stuck as parents. We're like, we're trying to get out the door, or we're trying to do this thing, and the kid won't do it. And I'm running out of time. And so I'll just. And that happens at work too. So when we
Yeah.
start to see how we behave the same, it's very interesting.
Do you have any, I guess it seems like there's maybe a couple of steps. It's like recognizing that you are doing that and you're accepting the responsibility back. But then do you have any kind of like go-to phrases or just like ways to process in your mind and kind of send the responsibility back to that person?
Yes, yes. Um, one of the one of the things I teach clients in the returning responsibility work is a concept called standing your ground, and that starts within you. And you, in your mindset, have to say to yourself, I'm returning this to the sender. I'm
Mm-hmm.
returning this to sender. And when I talk to whoever it is that I'm trying to return it to, I need to have an important conversation with them that's not in the heat of the moment. And so in my Empower cohort, we actually go through all different kinds of scripts and scenarios by which you can utilize returning responsibility. I think one of the biggest ones is identifying the data. Hey, so and so, the data is I've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I am now going to transfer this to you. I am giving this back to you. I know you can do it. I know it might be hard. I know you may not like it, but it's like this is what's going to happen. And there's going to be a lot of resistance. So standing your ground allows you to prepare for resistance. So you have to be really grounded in what actually belongs to you so you don't take it on
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I love that. That's so important and such a good reminder. I mentioned when we talked last time that something I've been trying to learn to do over the last few months is really not do everything myself and
Mhm.
give some things to my team. And then also to trust them to have responsibility, but give myself ways to kind of know that things are still happening
Yes.
without taking it back when I get worried about it. So I I love that concept of standing your ground. That's so valuable.
It's not easy to do, and it requires support, and the support of others who are going through the same thing, as well as someone who's like believes in your ability to do it. A lot of us, I think, had to figure things out on our own, and we were kind of thrown into the water and like figure it out, and you figure it out and you do it. And so we became those kind of women who are like, well, I'll just own it, I'll just do it. And we became so successful by owning everything and doing everything. And that success creates a detriment. It actually can create a detriment to those around us. And it's so funny because we care and want those people to do well. And in order for them to do well, our concept of our role has to shift.
Yeah, I haven't actually read this book, but I love the title. What got you here won't get you there, and
Yes.
I feel like it's such an important shift as people um, enter kind of leadership roles, but also probably enter parenthood and start to see so many more responsibilities come their way there too.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many responsibilities for caregiving. And I think especially one transition that was very hard for me as a mother was that I couldn't make everything bad go away.
Hmm.
I couldn't take my kids' struggles. And I did. I felt that they were mine, that I emotionally wore them. And as I started to go deeper into this concept of releasing and returning responsibility on the emotional, and some people would say like energetic level, I realized that by holding it, I wasn't allowing those around me to learn the lessons that they needed to learn. And that was really, really hard. Like I'm going to excruciatingly hard. So if
Yeah.
that's what you're experiencing right now, just know that I'm with you on that. And that doesn't just happen overnight. But when it can, and you can have intention and process, it can be very, very um, reinvigorating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned a couple places where it's common that people struggle. So maybe this
Yeah.
like especially ownership over hard things, and also like time sensitive things where you're really in a hurry. Are there other places that you see are tend to be really difficult for people to to return responsibility?
Um, I think that the hardest ones relate to identity. And this was something actually you actually brought up in our conversation a few days ago, was that when I associate certain responsibilities and tasks with my identity as what is a good boss or a good mom or a good person, these particular tasks feel very weighty and very hard to delegate. They're hard
Mhm.
to give ownership to others. But they're, in fact, a lot of times they're the ones that we, because we're so attached to them, they're the ones that we might be holding back or blocking from its full potential.
Yeah, um, I totally agree. I think we see a lot of these tasks that people tie to their identity and or think like must be their responsibility because that's what it means to be a good mom that
Yeah.
are some of the hardest to delegate. But often, if you can consciously say, like, I think this is what it means, like, if you're tying it to that, then it also is like probably something you don't enjoy doing that much because it's not something that you're doing because it brings like light to your day. And
Yes.
so I think those
So
ones are
true.
sometimes the most valuable to hand off if you can do them in kind of a systematized way. Um, how what do you suggest for someone who's kind of just getting started at this of ways to start creating ownership within their team or family or even working with an EA?
So I would, and this is what I start off with every client doing. I look at a particular aspect of their life. It could be work related stuff with their team, or it could be family life at home. But if you make a quick T chart on a paper and just draw a line up and down the middle and put yours, start writing down what are the top biggest, most heavy responsibilities that I carry right now. And that can be a person, that could be an emotion for somebody, that could be that's not like a to-do list, but it's actually like this belongs to me and I own it. And as you're making that kind of list, look at it really objectively and say to yourself, how much of this do I own? What is actually the percentage that I own? So in the case if you're raising your children with a partner, it might be like a 50%. Like I feel like I own 50% and they own 50%. However, I need to then be very honest and say, what is the feeling of ownership that I'm currently creating? And for many women I work with, that's like 100%, 100%. They carry it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And they look at that and they're like, all right, that's obviously unsustainable for me to feel that is mine. It's all mine. So
Yeah.
I would say that's a really good starting point. And if once you see one, even just start with one task, and someone popped up in the chat, like it feels like you own a lot. That's right. It doesn't have to feel that way, but I know exactly what you're going through. If you can look at that logistically and say, okay, what percentage of that? What does it look like to give back 10% if it is 100%? What would that look like on a day-to-day basis? Or if it's like an emotion, if I'm owning something that doesn't belong to me, what would I feel and experience on a day-to-day if I started to return that?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite first task that people can delegate? Like if you, that's just kind of like the one thing that gets them started on it.
I would say, where is your pain? Where are you in the
Mhm.
most pain? Because pain is so awesome, because pain is a motivator. I look at the thing that's causing me the most pain and I say, where is it with that particular thing that I can create some ownership? I would say, um, I have seen and experienced with myself and the women I coach that working with their kids is a wonderful, it's very rewarding, and it's very painful. And it's rewarding because it's so painful. But if you start to ground into, this is actually not mine, this is yours, and
Mhm.
you feel and believe that, even a little 10%, I'm telling you, those kids are so attuned to parents' energy. They start to realize, oh, yeah, I am going to have to do this thing. This thing belongs to me. And the younger, the better. If you can start younger, that's great. Little tiny things make
Yeah.
such a big difference.
I was reading about the idea of teaching kids to like notice that things need to get done. So, like for example, realizing that like you when we run out of toilet paper, like you need a new toilet paper roll. Where does that come from? Or like how does the toilet paper even get into the bathroom? Like noticing kind of these little things that a lot of times parents are doing silently in the background, and then using that as a way to get kids to recognize that they can actually pick up some of that responsibility too.
Yes, absolutely. We in our family, we created like a big long list of all the things that happen every night, just for dinner cleanup. It's really like a dinner cleanup list, you know? And then we added a few extra things on there. But we sat down and we had a meeting. This is part of my process, which I call like align with aspiration. It's like, guys, do we want to have like a messy house with crumbs everywhere and you feel embarrassed when your friends come over because there's like nobody cleaned up? No, we don't want that. So what do we want? And they were like, the toilet needs to be cleaned. I was like, really? For real? The toilet too? Like, okay, that wasn't on my original list, but they brought it up. So it got put on the daily list. And so now we have a clean toilet, because they all want to be part of that.
I love it. Um, I Kristen just said a cool quote, which was, I think, a fun example of asking her. She said, I asked my 5-year-old to come to the food store with me just for him to see that I actually have to go out and buy the food that he likes to eat.
Oh, that's
Um,
so good.
and yeah, just such a great example of helping to kind of recognize the whole process that it takes for all of us to live these charmed lives that we get to live.
Absolutely. And especially I think as a partner, when let's say you're co-parenting and you don't have someone in the house with you, and you have other people that are helping you, or even other services in that you're providing, just having your kids be aware of what it takes to make that happen, like Kristen, like as you said, it opens their awareness. And I actually think, especially as children are growing up, that they get a lot of positive feeling when they can do something, when they can actually contribution and self-efficacy. It's like, how can I do things? That's been a studied factor in a lot of parenting research that shows when kids can do and contribute, they feel good about themselves, even better than like when we do stuff for them, which I think is the hardest thing, because when they're young, we're doing a lot of care
Mm-hmm.
in that time.
Okay, I love your dinner kind of checklist or dinner cleanup. What are other systems that work well for you personally, or that you've seen work for other clients?
Um, I really love the idea of templates and checklists. And Ashley, you have so many wonderful checklists at Sundays. I just have to give a shout out to Sundays. These are all the checklists that we make and reuse. And I think some really, really awesome, especially some moms who are operational leaders. They are like, they have their whole task on like their whole household on a spreadsheet. I mean, there is some strong operationalization that can happen. Um, my favorite systems, I have to be very honest, are the ones that I don't have to own. So if I can give help, if I can be in true coach mode, and for example, like um, I work with a virtual assistant, and there's a lot of times where I'm trying to delegate and hand off. And as all of you know, when you've delegated, you still feel like you own it. You still feel like you have to come back at certain checkpoints because it's yours ultimately, and the person is doing it for you. And so one system that I've created to really help with ownership versus delegation is called, I've called it the returning responsibility matrix. And it's a step-by-step process of actually getting someone from the point of, okay, I'm giving you and telling you it's yours, to you own it. And I don't actually even need to know about it until certain checkpoints that I decide with you. And I would love to share the link to that. If you're interested in that system, um, you are more than welcome to get a copy of it. And I actually, let's see, we can put that in the chat later, I think, if I can't pump it in there right now.
Yeah, we can, I don't think this comment thing will let us actually share it back to LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
So, we'll drop it in a little bit, but I think
That's
so useful, Amelia. And I think also having kind of like the why behind why we're doing these things makes it stick a little bit more too.
For sure. There's a lot of preparation that goes into actually returning responsibility in an effective way. What I've seen is people get really excited and they're like, I'm about to like return all of this to everyone. Like, bam, here you go. And then they come back and they're like, Amelia, my life is in a little bit of a turmoil. And so I ask, like, did you prepare? Did you align with them before you did that? Did you create that? No, I didn't. I just got so, and we all feel that way, right? We're just like, take it. Like, I'm over it. And I think that's the time where we need to get like, we might need to get some help, like an executive assistant to help us, or we might need to think about how important is this to me?
Yeah, I had an example of that recently where I have someone who I've until this point have done all of our like sales myself, and then recently have been bringing on someone who's helping a little bit, which I'm super excited for. But I noticed that as I started ramping her up, I started liking it less. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready to be done with this. And like, I don't want to do any more. I like want her to do all of it, but like, she's obviously learning and ramping up on that. And so it's not really fair for me to be like, okay, now you totally own it. Like we need to have more of a gradual process.
Yes.
But I think that it's super interesting where you want to kind of, once you decide that you're going to hand something off, you're like, I'm just going to toss it over there. It's done. But that's actually where some of the harder work is, because you have to then systematize the things that you are doing and make it so that someone else can pick it up and especially, yeah, doesn't have to start it from scratch. You already know how it should work.
Yes. And creating, one system that I think is so useful and anyone can implement in any way is like opening a feedback loop with that person. And you can open a loop with an employee, you can open it with a family member. It's all about your energy and intention. So when you actually ask for, you make a request, because we really can't like force people to do things. We can, but then a short term.
Not for very long. Yeah.
Not for very long. It's like a short-term strategy. You can say to them, hey, is it all right at X time we check back on this? And so I can see how things are going. And also you can come back to me and let me know what you're learning about it. Because if it's ownership, it's no longer mine. Mm-hmm. You're not reporting to me on it. And I think that's what it's very different when in a work environment, we have performance outcomes, we have job expectations, we have all that kind of a thing. But when people are thriving, they own their job. They know what to do. When you're trying to create more ownership, just like you said, Ashley, like we need to create safety for people to come back. And we need to create safety for them to expect that we will have feedback. We are going to talk about it. I am going to ask for it. I am going to look for, like simple things, but we often don't set that up for ourselves. And that's a lot of when I coach executives with their team members is on, can we create these loops in advance so that people don't feel, they feel a certain way when we're coming very, immediately. Where is this thing? Why isn't it done? Here's the
Hmm.
feedback. And there's absolutely like a time and place for that. Like I'm definitely, we have to sometimes have that space, but most of the time when we're trying to create ownership, that's not a winning strategy.
Yeah. How long do you suggest waiting to start giving feedback or create those loops?
Ooh, that's a really great question. You know, if it's something new, I would say the sooner the better, like the closer in. Um, if you are doing something, I think the example that a lot of women in my community have shared is, especially at home, when there are things they have owned for a really, really long time.
Hmm.
And it's a shift for the whole household to collectively own. They have found it really helpful to have those checkpoints, but they also make it really joyful. Like, so they combine it with something the family wants to do, like brunch, you know? They make it fun and rewarding with like stickers. So they bring important elements of their values into that system, which that's sometimes like ignored at work. It's like, oh, I just need to give you the feedback and I'm just going to do it and whatever. And I'm not thinking about what am I, the environment that I'm creating in this. And the environment starts within us. It doesn't have to mean brunch or stickers, you know? We, when we start to see ourselves as these creator of environments versus the owner and executor of all the things, that's also a big transformation in some of the outcomes that I've seen.
I love that. What are some of the things to look for to decide if someone is ready to receive greater responsibility and ready to take ownership over that?
I would say, and this is going to sound funny, but people who are disengaged and complaining.
That is not what I expected you to say.
I think that often our greatest resistors are people who are looking to try to get on the same page and contribute together. So when it comes to people who seem like everything is a problem and they're not interested in doing anything, those aspirational conversations become really, really important. And I'll tell you an example from my own personal life. So with myself and my husband, we had to actually, in order to have constructive conversations about our parenting and our household, like any good leadership team, we had to make an offsite. We had to leave our environment, leave the kids with my parents or a babysitter, and we had to go and get out of our day to day and actually talk to each other about what do we want from our partnership and in our household. And why do leaders spend enormous amounts of time and energy taking their team offsite to a place to all get aligned around a certain goal? It works. And we need
Yeah.
to be away from that environment. But we often don't do that. We don't give that same weight to the home life that we would. And I stopped thinking about that my husband was another person to delegate stuff that belonged to me. And I started to refer to us as the leadership team. And he was my chief operating officer. And so we need to go have an offsite. And it really, it helped so much. And he was so much happier. Are you kidding? He did not like being like given, it wasn't, it's the women on this call. If you are hearing this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This dynamic exists. Um, so that's how I would approach when those people who are resisting you a lot might just need that extra time and consideration to get onto the same page. And then once they are, it's amazing. It's incredible. So that's not necessarily for every situation, but I've seen that over and over and over, that when that person feels like they can contribute, they are much happier and more engaged and fulfilled. I don't know if anyone's seen examples of like when someone got a responsibility, they suddenly like stepped up to the task and they were like there for it.
I love that. I think that's so interesting because I think we often will like shy away from harder situations or people who are unhappy, but
Yeah.
I think that actually choosing to engage those people sounds really powerful. Um, okay, I know that we talked about a couple of things that we're going to share shortly. We talked about the returning responsibility matrix, and I loved the little exercise you shared about just like quickly jotting down what you're responsible for and really thinking about, do I need to be responsible for this? I would love to hear about anything else exciting coming up for you, Amelia.
Yes, well, I'm really excited. January 2025, I am launching the Empower Level Up cohort, and this is all of the best tools, techniques, information that I've used with Fortune 500 executives packed into a 6-week group cohort to give you the 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 mindset, to give you the tools, and to give you the support you need to level up. Now, a lot of times level up is this phrase that's tossed around a lot, but I want you to not only level up but level out. And we're thrilled to have a collaboration with Ashley and with Sundays, in which we're bundling specialized executive assistant hours into the cohort themselves. So not only will you receive this amazing squad of women, but you are also going to be able to work with an executive assistant during the cohort to help you get more time back, more energy back for what's the thing that's most important to you right now. And most importantly, you're going to be in the company of women who get it, women who are leading like you and are also parenting like you. It's going to be so exciting. So if you want more information, we'll post the links later on. But that is what's happening in 2025. And for those of you who want to know more, there will be in the returning responsibility matrix, there will be a way for you to get the not only the matrix but also a debrief. So I'm offering a responsibility debrief to give you some personalized strategies, and that's completely free of charge. So it just gives you more opportunity to learn about this and learn if working together is a fit. But I'm thrilled to have had the chance to speak with you today, and looking forward to hearing more how these tools are working for you.
I'm so excited. I'm going to be using these actively myself. I just posted a comment. It should be a little bit cleaner looking in LinkedIn, but um, I think the returning responsibility matrix is so powerful, and we are so excited to be doing the Empower cohort with you, Amelia, and get a chance to work with some of the amazing parents and executives that you support too.
Thank you. Yes, it's been an honor, and look forward to hearing your thoughts, any feedback, questions, concerns, anything. Just hit me up in the DMs. And thank you so much, Ashley, for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I think we'll say goodbye for now. So thanks
Sounds
everyone for being
good.
here with us.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care.